Hey everyone, it's your boy Dutchy. You haven't heard from me in a while, and that's because, that's because I have better things to do. Anyway, as many of you know, I think all of you know, we've got a second Planet Coaster game coming up, and that kind of leaves me with a not even quarterly finished park. And so I thought to myself, well, why don't I just show what I've been working on? Um, there's an entrance area, a grand entrance area for the tiny size of the park, actually. There's a humongous parking lot because for some reason I decided to create a park somewhere, idyllically, of course, as always, somewhere on the European continent, but with an American sized parking lot. Um, and then there is a pirates land, a land completely dedicated to pirates. It was surprisingly hard to find any good examples out there. It seems that every park and their mother has maybe one or two pirate rides, swinging ship and, well, something else. I've been hard pressed to find an entire land dedicated to pirates. So that is something that I wanted to tackle. And then there's a space land because I thought, kind of went on the fly with it. I thought that would be a nice way, juxtaposed next to the Pirates Land, to just give gas something entirely different. And then the third land, and before the game releases, I hope to work on, is a spooky land, for lack of better title. Which would be, sort of celebrating Halloween, permanent Halloween area. Spooky dark ride kind of thing. I don't know. I guess these three themes always spoke the most to me. Of course, Western would be the fourth land that I would be working on. I just like all the extreme themes and sort of classic themes, I guess. Pirate, space, Western, spooky. Yeah, and I have mixed thoughts about Planet Coaster 2. Not so much on what we're getting, it means saying goodbye to Planet Coaster 1. Now, of course, you can still keep playing Planet Coaster 1 for as long as you feel like, but let's face it, most of us will do that for maybe 1 week. But once we've gotten used to the new lighting engine and some of the improved path options, Coaster Builder, and many other quality of life improvements that they release with the second edition, I don't think too many of us will be working in Planet Coaster anymore. And well, that means saying goodbye to our projects. It means saying goodbye to all the obstacles that we mastered over the last 8 years. It also means saying goodbye for now, at least, to Theme Maker's Toolkit items, which for the more advanced builders, that kind of makes up 90% of your park. So we'll all be starting from scratch, and that, of course, is the nice thing about Planet Coaster 2. The playing field will be leveled. We'll all be working with the exact same scenery pieces, and that is going to be exciting. So there's a part of me that's going to miss Planet Coaster 1, but to go through that same sort of super interesting period when a game gets newly released, and you just see everyone creating stuff out of the most unlikely scenery pieces. That was a great deal of fun in the first years of Planet Coaster 1. So I'm looking forward to that. We'll all be using the same pieces. We'll all start from zero. And soon we'll have entire roofs made of noses and statues made out of little forks. And, it's going to be insane. And I really look forward to that. Well, that's enough blabbering. I suppose I should just walk you through, well, where the guests come from. They come from a metro or monorail station, which is non-active, by the way. The monorail starts somewhere in the back and, could end here, or maybe I'll curve it outwards. Who am I kidding? I'm not going to work on this any longer. City lines, yeah, so this is where the guest spawn point is. There's nothing inside. There's just a, surprise, surprise, guest spawn point. And, that's where they come from. Then they walk down this beautiful avenue. It's not so impressive. This is still sort of parking lot land. Let me show that parking lot, by the way, before we head any further. Parking lot land. Here you go. Nice and symmetrical. Because that's exactly what it would look like in real life, right? And then they get into the sort of the pre-square, the pre-plaza. This is where they will buy their tickets here at the wonderful information booths. That's something I would have liked to see in PlanetCoaster, by the way, in PlanetCoaster 2. Ticket booths. Just actual place that if you decide to make your park, you can always decide to have basically a free park where the rides charge a fee or just a one price for the entire park. I think most of us would go with the latter option, but and if you were to do so, then it would have been lovely to have actual ticket booths where people buy their ticket and they could then go through some of these gates. So I built 6 of them, I had fun. I had fun doing that. It's. I always like taking that. I think this is all spooky DLC. It sort of gives you that old Disney-esque Main Street sort of Victorian meets American whatever charm, and they just work really well for gates. So that's been nice. And actually, it's only 5 gates. I thought it was 6. There you go. Math is hard. Where were we? So there's not much you can do. I think I built this about 2 years ago, and I still like it. It's sort of gardeny. There's a lot of space. There's a lot of square meters for people to sort of waver out, to get away from the crowds, to just sit down, put on their walking shoes or whatsoever. So I really like that. I like how that turned out. And once you go through one of the gates, that's of course where you get to the real plaza, which looks extremely dead without people in it. It looks, but it's. I wanted to have these buildings that would sort of look like real theme park buildings. On the right, there's nothing done, so why bother? On the left, excuse me for the clipping, there's there's the parking lot. There's a fence there. Clearly, you're not meant to really look in that direction. So I would place some more shrubbery here and just call it a day. This is one of those dead ends and whatever. Then you go through these buildings that were loosely inspired on the Prater Park in Vienna. They have these really lovely, gaudy, extremely cardboard-looking entrance buildings, and I just there's only one of them, but then I thought, well, why don't I make 2? Why don't I make it symmetrical and have this bridge that is actually really just lifted from the Prater Park in Vienna? And the Prater Park, for those who've been there, of course, you know it already. There's this wonderful mix of, it's sort of enchanting, and at the same time, it's extremely ghetto, and there's no place like it. But when you're in Vienna, that's just one of the things you always go to. You have to spend at least one afternoon in the Prater Park. What do we have here? Then we have, guess what? We have the sort of main entrance plaza, because you can never have too many entrance plazas, can you? As you can see, just going back, this is all extremely grand. This is supposed to be an entrance area for sort of a Disney World sized park or Europa Park or something humongous. But you know what? I'm a megalomaniac, and this is what I went with. Then we're at the plaza. I had to pause the game because I have all this background music, which you don't hear, but it's everywhere. The speakers are everywhere. And at night, by the way, it really does look nice using different colored lights. It just gives a very... I actually have to eliminate the buildings, but it just gives a nice, lively sort of vibe. So I really like that. But where were we? I had to pause the game because of the extremely annoying music that just gets on my nerves at some point. But yeah, beautiful, rich area. I mean, I don't think... this is where N7 would tell me that this is completely unrealistic, because no park would spend this much on, on flowers and shrubs, and this would cost a fortune. He's right, but then again, my parks are always filthy rich, so we can afford it, N7. And then we get to the Grand Plaza, for lack of a better word. This is where at night you would see the fireworks from behind the Opera Building. The Opera Building is it's actually not an Opera Building. I think there's a restaurant in there. But It's inspired by, I think, mostly the opera house in Ukraine, in Lviv. There's also a bit of the Parisian opera house, of course. There's a couple of opera houses in there. So, just wonderful TMTK statues that really, especially the angel on top. Oh, excuse me. I hate when that happens. There we are. That's just glorious. It's exactly the finishing touch, and it's beautiful. Anyway, yes, the opera house, and it's sort of, I call this, in my mind, this is the French Plaza, because the buildings are somewhat, Hausermann inspired. He's the great architect of Bordeaux, and then later Paris. Yeah, it's just kind of that style. I don't know, it just feels like it works, it's simple. I was lazy here, by the way. On the left, there's this. On the right, in different order, guess what? It's a copy-paste. But you know what? It works. It somehow feels like it's one coherent ensemble, and I just felt that I wanted something simple that wouldn't detract too much from the fireworks show later on, and especially not too much from the glorious opera house that is illuminated so beautifully at night. So, call me lazy, but I think it just works, and as you all know, that's the most important. Then we've got the pirates area. So you go through this little corridor, this gate, and we've got these little vitrines, those little windows, where it sort of announces, mind you, you're going into pirate land. Oh, there's a parrot there. I think this looks better at night. There you go. Well, not quite. But, yeah, it's just something for the people to look at, and just a nice way to transition from that area into the pirates land. Because all of a sudden, you really are in pirate land. There's no gradient. There's no soft transition. It's just, boom, you're there. There's skulls. There's dangerous-looking wooden pikes. There's barrels. Subtropical plants. It's just a whole different vibe, and that's exactly what I wanted it to be. I just wanted you to immediately enter a different world, and that's where you are. So there's a simple thing here on the left, which is just a food house, a little gourd. It works. It's a dead end. There's many dead ends in my park, which I learned is not all that unrealistic. So yeah, this is one of the first. I think this is the first time ever I've used those tables. They look great, actually. I mean, I've always known they look great. It's just seeing them in the right context, actually somehow making it work. It looks fabulous. It looks like such a nice place to be, and it looks dense. And I just imagine that when one's sitting here, yeah, that's just a really cool area, right? You see the train going by. If you're lucky, at some point you'll have the coaster soaring over your head. So it just seems like a really nice place to be. Of course, the backside is total ghetto backstage. And that's exactly, that's exactly how we want it. I love doing backstage areas. It's always a bit of a pain, but it's so extremely satisfying. Yeah, that's just, the sadness of backstage areas. It's like where all the magic just goes to die. It's wonderful. Anyway, back to that. So this, I imagine, would be this gate is themed so that it doesn't detract too much, but it just sort of takes you to the service road in the back. The service road goes, it's actually pretty, if I might say so myself, it's rather nifty. I still want to build a little guardhouse here, but this 4-meter lane would then, and I have to think of a way to separate the parking lot better. But this 4-meter lane would then just simply, take you all the way there to the backstage part, which cannot be seen from the parking lot. Yeah, and then, it takes you to the backstage area, or it takes you through the gate, and you can make your deliveries. So that's something I really enjoy. I certainly wish that logistics would play a true role in PlanetCoaster 2. That is a glaring omission. I really hope that that's something they might want to consider for the future, but we'll see. What else do we have? Then, you know, there's a well, there's a lawn, there's, you know, the kind of stuff that when you don't know what to do with a space, you just decorate it. There's a little guest relations house with a toilet on the back. But you know what? Actually, the way I want people to go through this area is by crossing the bridge. Oh. So let's see. There you go. You cross the super dangerous crossing. Train just left, but okay. Then there's a bridge. That's not just any bridge, but it actually gives you a fantastic view of the dive coaster. It's not a dive coaster. What am I saying? It's a suspended coaster. But it does make a deep dive here. I'm speeding up the game in the hopes that we'll have a coaster coming by soon. There we are. So, you cross the bridge, and there's just that nice moment. Yeah, that's just really cool. That's one of the things you always live for, right? When you build a park, this is the kind of stuff that you like to do. They go through a tunnel that is... I wonder if it's technically sound the way I custom supported it. But again, I'm not a coaster head. Just like Ruby always says, she's more into scenery, so am I. For me, it's all about building atmosphere and my own perfect little dream world where nothing can touch you and it's just all wonderful. But when guests soar through it, there's a lot of animation going on. There's flickering lights that sort of resemble fire. And there's smoke and fog, I mean. And yeah, it just takes you through this sort of decrepit hull. I really have HULL of the ship and the skeleton of the ship. And then it takes you back up, and you know it's just a really entertaining ride. It's a short one, but it's a rather lively one. And the good people at the Bro Nation actually thought this was a good coaster. I think that's my first in 8 years of playing PlanetCoaster. Alright, then you get to this area where you'll be looking straight at the swinging ship. I know a lot of people don't like the swinging ship. They think it's far too large. I know it is, but it's also such an iconic thing. I think it's so well themed. I really like it. There's a little bit of art here. I just thought it would be nice to have something there. Kind of going with that drowned pirate thing. And, you know, they all come from this ship. And there's a siren, the mermaid, who must have somehow distracted the sailors. You know, it's just a little bit of lore that, yeah. Anyway. Just pausing for a moment again because there's a lot of music here. Then there's this sort of ruin pirate nest outlook area, whatever I intended there. It's just a nice thing to walk through. Nothing themed, nothing special. I could imagine maybe having a trapdoor with a skeleton arm coming out every now and then. But yeah, I just like how this looks. You know, it's a nice rougher area, and once you're here, you've completely forgotten about the Parisian, about the French Plaza. You just have that coaster soaring by, and I hope that that's just an extremely fun thing for people to be looking at. And I have no idea why these two are here. Hold on. You know, this happened before to me in another save game where some things just seem to have moved on their own. Anyway. Where were we? So we're at the other side, just to give you a glimpse. I hope I'm not boring you with this. But, you know, you can always watch another video. yeah, so this is that area. Then, before we head to the left to explore the coaster, I just want to show you this cute little thing. Again, using the ships, the boats, as a backdrop. Roger's Jollies. Those who know, they know. And underneath these things, there's always a bench. So people will be actually sitting on the crates, and they come in various variations. And I thought that'd be fun. I sort of gave the swinging ship its own land almost, because it's a big ride, and one thing that I've learned as of late, actually, much too late maybe, is that it's much more fun giving your bigger rides their own dedicated normal path for people to get to the ride in the first place. So you kind of turn that into a secondary path. People don't really go here unless they want to go on the ride. So people don't mingle here unless they want to queue. And, you know, I wish I had discovered this before. Probably some people said it, but I just never paid attention. If you do that, if you take a normal path, have it, what do you call it? Sprout off, for lack of a better word, of the main path. And just direct it to a dedicated ride area, where the only thing people can do is either exit a ride or queue for a ride. Well, guess what? That main path is basically going to act like an extended queue. And God, I wish I'd known that before. It changes. It all goes so much smoother. There's way less clogging because, well, you kind of have a queue that's just sort of doubled in length. Anyway, once you go in here in the Stormy Seas, which is such an inspired name, this took me a long time to make the custom, the sort of ropey fence here, but it does look good, I think. It's just a nice little walk, right? There's a little bit of vegetation, not too much, not too expensive. Then there's a little centerpiece, and this is where you go in. You pass little Ursula here. And this was also something I discovered, by the way. There's a kettle pen. I didn't know you can make the, what is it called? The fast pass, the fast track, fast pass queues this short. And if you do it carefully and hope that everything aligns, you just turn the fast pass queue into a little bypass for the kettle pen. And it works it works really well. Of course, there's always the part where people sort of keep a distance because the fast pass queue path is about to start, so that looks a bit unnatural, but it works extremely well. And all I can say is I wish I'd known about this before, but now I do, and we'll see if that knowledge comes in handy in PlanetCoaster 2. So that's that whole area, which is also just lovely to look at when you're sitting here with the fountains. All right, moving on to the coaster. Another bridge, this time not for a roller coaster, but just to see at some point have the train, sort of go under the bridge. I think we're getting lucky here. That's just wonderful. I think it's a bit steep for the train. It turns into a bit of a roller coaster there, but that's still really nice. It's just, as you're about to enter this land, which is looks so much wilder, it just feels really nice. The entrance is forked off real nicely, if I may say so myself. It just looks, in my opinion, it looks good. I like how it weaves along the normal path. I think I filled up a bit with the path texture. But yeah, this is a nice queue. Simple. I don't think there's a kettle pen. No, there's not. There's a bit of shade every now and then. There's some trees. I would imagine this is a fairly exciting queue because you keep seeing the coaster going all the way, and at some point it's your turn. For the station, that went through so many different iterations. In the end, I went with this, which I am fairly happy with. Not sure what to call this style. I don't know if it needs a name. But yeah, it's one of these things that when I look at it, I think to myself, oh, this is nice enough, you know. This doesn't look bad. So I was happy with it, and yeah, seems to work, right? Has a nice little woodsy piratey vibe. Blackbeard's Revenge. Yeah, sorry, I really ran out of inspiration for names. This is the one thing I really like. When you take the 4-meter paths, both for the exit and the entry, you can make something really symmetrical before you then go into the 2-meter queue. But I just thought it'd be nice to, again, going with the whole shipwreck kind of vibe here, to have this pirate sitting here. It's supposed to look like a statue, so I tried to make the animatronic look like a statue. I just thought it would be cute, you know, just to have some sort of a, yeah, it's not, you know, it's obviously not water, but just to kind of have that vibe and a nice thing for people to look at. Then there's another dead end. I think I spent 5 minutes on this part. I couldn't care about this. So, yeah, this is pretty much Dutchy 2016, by the way. This is how I built back then. Actually, this was built this year, so I have no excuse. But I just wanted to be done with it, you know. It's like, I need something there. So here's 2 shops. There's a loo, and, well, that's it. Should I turn the next land into a new episode, or should I just do... You know what, let's just keep watching. If you're still entertained, if you still want to see more, then stay tuned. This area here this is actually a facade that I'm rather proud of. It's simple, but it just works really well. As you can see, it's really just all on the same, sort of on the same dimension. But at the same time, it feels like it's multiple different buildings, and with the trees all around you, it feels nicely convoluted, and yeah, this seems to work, you know, and give it some quirky names like Blackbeard's Buns and Wiltong and that kind of stuff, and well, there you go. Here's another hidden bench. I think at this point we should just let the people in. Alright, then there is of course the galley. The galleon, I mean. The pirate ship. Yeah, and there's a beach. This is an idea that I actually stole from Disneyland Paris, where they have that little beach in the Adventurous List Pirates area. I always thought it was such a nice thing. You couldn't access the beach there. Here you're not supposed to either. It's just for you to look at. I wish that we could do more with this galleon. I wish we could have a restaurant in there, or in the very least have a flat surface so we could have people wander around. But well, we're left with a humongous scenery piece, which is a fabulous piece, but it's humongous. Making your own galleon would have been such a bitch that I decided not to even bother. So, yeah, that's where we are. But, lo and behold, there is, of course... I forgot what I called it. Actually, I didn't call it anything, but we have to pretend that this is some... you know, like pirate's treasure or pirate's booty or something like that. Booty as in treasure. Yeah, I just wanted something different there, and I think that worked. It's sort of lifted from the Efteling, where at one point they revamped Monsieur Cannibal, which was a teacup ride, which well was Monsieur Cannibal was maybe a bit out of touch with modern times in terms of theming, so they went with Sinbad's Adventure or something. I just love the whole sort of eclectic collection here of different lanterns, and there's a treasure, and you know, there's ropes and things that glow in the dark, and you know, it just kind of, it's a carousel. It's nothing more than that. But I feel it just worked real nicely to have that feeling as if this is sort of this is where the pirates keep their treasures. You know, from lands in the far east, the far west, the north, the south. Yeah, it just seems to work, and I think it's actually a lovely, if not primitive, but it's a lovely structure. All right, then Pirates Land feels a bit cramped, and there's a lot of gates, and what I really wanted was for the Space Land, which is far from done, so I just considered this a preview. I wanted that to work, to be more open. So there's less fencing, there's bigger lawns, and I made these cute little custom lanterns. I hope you like them. Yeah, and then of course the main point here would be sort of the Planet Plaza, whatever. There's a bit of lore here as well of a spaceship that got shut down, or I don't know, somehow crashed. I see a recurring theme here, by the way: crashing boats, crashing spaceships. Well, I mean, how else are you going to make their presence known, right? You can only sort of work in the past with these kind of things. I wanted this to be a fountain, but I could find absolutely no way of making it appear as if there was water coming out of the globe and then, sort of streaming off the globe. So, yeah, that didn't work. There is a beautiful piece here that the planets, well, TMTK items, I really like them. I used roller coaster, this single reel thing, to make this sort of a wall and make it more interesting. I hope that worked. Of course, at night, this stuff looks brilliant. So, it's getting somewhere. There's an arcade, again, using the single reel, which I've used everywhere in the Spaceland. It's just such a good way to have round shapes, which is normally otherwise pretty much impossible. Yeah, it's an arcade. I mean, what more do you want to know? I built one of these before, and in another park, so it's almost a carbon copy of that one. But I like how it turned out. It's simple. Yeah. And what else can I show you? I think the last thing to show you for today, and then you are free to go, is this structure, which isn't that remarkable. It's just you should know that it took me forever to build it. I wanted something spacey, and I learned that space architecture is remarkably difficult. So I don't know what this is supposed to be. We'll just have to pretend that it's spacey. Yeah, that's pretty much all I can say about it. But I do like how it turned out in the end. After many iterations, I spent far too many evenings on it. I don't know if it's a big thing. No, 340 pieces, not even that big. Nice to use these animatronics as sort of statues that people could be looking at, and there's a little light, and it just seems to work nicely. There's one on this side, and then his competitor, so to speak, is on the other side. Yeah, I think that worked. I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. Then there's the Omni Mover, which is the first time ever that I could use it in a park. No, sorry, what am I saying? It's not an Omni Mover, it's the People Mover. Yeah, I'm just glad how that worked out. At some points, it's running parallel to the train track, which I would imagine is sort of cool. I just wish that the smoke wouldn't come through the structures. Maybe that's something that they got better at in PlanetCoaster 2. Anyway, that's Spaceland, so far from finished. I don't know if I'll even manage to finish it. And then there's still Spookyland that I want to work on, so honestly, we'll see. This would be a dark ride, and it looks really cool at night. Yeah, I think, there's a reflection pond, so could work out nicely. The only way that I found the People Mover to somehow look good and not be this glaring white structure that just always looks out of place is by having the roof match the grass. For me, that just it changed it entirely, and all of a sudden I could accept this thing being there, because when it has the default color, oh my goodness, it just stands out like a sore thumb, and you constantly look at it from above, because that's, as a builder, that's how we look at things. And it draws the attention far too much, and it annoys you, and it just doesn't work. But then when it somehow blends into the map, it feels all right. I don't know if that makes sense, but to me it does, and that's all that matters. So this is the park as it stands. There's some natural boundaries. There's a sort of highway type of boundary thing. This is where on the right, I don't know if you can see my mouse pointer. On the right is where I would imagine some neighborhood. And yeah, that's kind of what it would look like. We'll see how far I get. And I guess next time I'll see you in PlanetCoaster 2. Thanks for watching.